Good morning, everybody. It's Two for Tuesday with Chuck Frank and myself. I'm Rich Thornton, and today our guests are Gilbert Thurston and Christina Gray. You're going to get a chance to meet them and hear a little bit about their life stories and the ministries that they lead, and share some different things to encourage us today and teach us. As we get going, just want to remind you that here on those of you watching it on Zoom, you can write in on chat, and it's also a Q&A section if you have any particular questions you want me to ask of them at some point during this time. So feel free to enter right in. We're thankful for all of you that are here. Those of you who are watching it on YouTube as well, thank you for taking the time to watch it. And let's have a word of prayer before we get started some more. Let's pray. Dear God, thank you so much for this time. We thank you we can gather together. We're in different places, but we are one, and we gather together to learn from each other and hear about each other's experiences. So we just ask you to bless this time together. Bless Chuck as he leads us through, and be with Gilbert and Christina as they're sharing today. And we thank you for their lives and their families and the ministries that they are part of leading. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Hey, well, thanks, Rich. Good to have you here on Two for Tuesdays with Chuck and Rich. And this will be my last, not my last one, but at least my last one for the next couple of weeks, as I've got to go in for some knee replacement surgery. Everybody go, ooh. Nobody's put no comment here. Boy, it's a tough crowd this morning. Anyway, so I'll be out of action for a couple of weeks, and Rich will be here with all the entertainment you could ever stomach for a Tuesday morning. And
well, next week, Victor Glover's gonna. Victor's gonna.
Oh yeah, sure.
He's gonna fill in for Chuck Frank. He was this big chance.
Impossible. So can't be done.
Well, I know. But we're going to have a couple other guests on next week, too. Of course,
nobody can look that stupid, okay? Nobody can look that stupid. Anyway, so...
there's no comment I can make or should make about that.
Well, actually, I thought sure Gilbert would jump in on that, but he's just being very polite today.
Yeah.
And Christina, just wait till she lets loose, man. You just got to duck. Anyway, we welcome everyone today. Enough of the frivolities. And I want to welcome Christina Gray, who is... planting House of Bread Church. Now, I'm sure the first question is going to be, not yet, don't get ready yet, but the House of Bread? I mean, how do we do that? And then we have Gilbert Thurston from not the House of Bread, but from Exponential Church. Is it still .tv or not? I get a little confused with the .tv.
Well, legally it's still .tv, but yeah, we were able to change it to just Exponential.
So you matured from a .tv into what?
Just Exponential Church.
Sounds like you're going traditional. Anyway, so, and Gilbert was one of the first cluster of planters that came out of the 2020 initiative way back in 2000, and your anniversary date for launch is, everybody knows this, who?
October 17th, 2010, so we're coming up on 10 years. 10
years, unbelievable. We can't believe we've all survived that. Anyway, so hey, let's get started. If I could, I'll turn it over to Christina, give us a brief biography snapshot of you, your life, and what got you here to where you are today?
Well, we're from the Biglerville, Aspers, Upper Adams County area. We're about 15-20 minutes north of Gettysburg. And I was at Mount Pleasant Church of God helping Zach Wilt up there, going through the PTI program. Finished that as it transitioned over to MTI. And now we have launched with a small group of people, House of Bread and TCC Ministries. We actually went and toured Jeremy up in Elmira, his church, because our goal wasn't so much to plant a church, but to open a community center and to reach people that might not walk into church. So we want to open a coffee house and community center, and we're in the process of that. We're looking at a building. There's a contract being drawn up as we speak. I was talking to our realtor this morning. So we're looking at a building on the square in Biglerville, hoping to be able to open a community center and coffee house based on Acts 2:46 and 47, which is they continue to meet in the temple courts, which was the area of the temple where the Gentiles could come in and do marketplace commerce. And our vision was just to be able to reach people and really support our church with a business that would keep it going. And of course we have tithing people right now. Right now it's kind of flip-flop. Right now our church is helping to get the business up and running. But we hope to have that coffee house there where we're doing business with people that wouldn't walk into church. One thing we've really learned in all this, it's really helped our focus. I guess two things really. One is that we need to listen to people, and that is, we've practiced that amongst ourselves and with our meetings. Like in the 3.5 minutes you have of someone getting coffee, to be able to pay attention to them as you get regulars in there and offer to pray for them, just pick up on cues of their life and things like that. So really paying attention to people's words and what they're saying. And our baristas are hopefully going to be missionally trained as well as trained on coffee and keeping up the shop. We really want them to see their jobs as missionaries, and that would go the same with our climbing. We have a rock climbing vision for this place, and a guy who does that, and dance lessons, and anything you can offer the community. But we have those skills within our group, people who've done instruction in that. So those people are viewing this as a discipleship opportunity. And we also have started the steps to get involved with or actually start our own Celebrate Recovery, so that we have that going in a community center. We're bringing people in. They're not viewing this so much as walking into a church. There's not going to be a big church sign. The church will meet in the coffee house on Saturday nights, and our goal is to be closed on Sunday. So
it would be safe to say that, first of all, you're a church with a coffee house, or you're a coffee house with a church?
We have two separate nonprofit entities at the suggestion of touring the Transformation Center up in Elmira. We are a coffee house that House of Bread has first dibs on renting our space as a church. That's how we are right now. So ultimately, TCC, the coffee house, the board is the same people. I know it's kind of funny, but the way we had to set it up, they have different positions on different boards, but it's the same people. But ultimately, as the coffee house gets up and running and is able to pay the bills, the church will rent space from the coffee house to use the space. So we are a coffee house that's renting some space. We're a coffee house community center, faith-based, because all of our nonprofit, you have to come up with the Constitution, everything in there is faith-based for the Constitution. So we're, unashamedly, openly faith-based nonprofit, but House of Bread is renting from Temple Court Community.
Okay. So before I get over to Gilbert here, what House of Bread? I mean, what is that? I mean, it sounds like a Panero's on faith wheels or something.
Yeah. That is taken from actually just like a personal experience I had where, looking back, God led me to it, and, I'm just thick maybe and didn't see what was coming, but he really just gave me a personal vision of just Jesus standing with a loaf of bread. And I thought, what is happening here? I was doing just some praying one night, and what do you want from this? And it's really that Jesus is the bread of life, and that we have to give that bread to other people. And that was I'd say like 4 or 5 years ago. And then as this came forward, I said, guys, as far as the ministry of the church, I just want to give Jesus to people. We want to be the bread of life to people. Let's call it House of Bread. And it really goes hand in hand with, I think now that we have a community center and a coffee house, we also are looking for the opportunity to feed people physically, kind of like the manna that came down from heaven, right? We're going to feed people physically, but what they really need is the spiritual food, and that's our goal in all of this. So that's House of Bread Church, and it goes hand in hand with the Temple Court Community Ministry.
So you're pointing out one really great aspect of church planting. It's geared towards reaching people for Christ, and it's so solely anticipating having faith encounters with people to introduce them to Jesus and to hopefully grow them up in Jesus and then send them out in Jesus. So that, as we go through the hour here, I want to continue to bring us back to church planting and multiplication, why that's so important. And you point out the fact it's important because you're reaching people for Christ. And ultimately, that's the next generation of Jesus that we got to be reaching. Gilbert, speaking of the evangelists of our conference, you have a reputation for being. I imagine you're in the APAS. You're off the wall for evangelism, as far as what you've been gifted with and what you've been called to. So give us a little bit of biography of you and how you got to where you are today.
Actually, so I'm looking at my APEST here. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm hearing a lot of feedback. Are you hearing me all right?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I was just looking. I have my APEST sitting right here. So actually, evangelism's number 3. But they're the top 3 are very closely together. So
Okay.
teaching, apostolic, and evangelism. So, but they're all within one of each other. But anyway, sorry. What was your question? I just didn't remember I had the APEST sitting here, and it's like, where do I?
There's not too many people that can just whip out a APEST at a moment's notice. That's really a great gift.
Well, I just happen to have it sitting right here next to me. So,
so give the audience a glimpse of your journey.
Well, I was born at a very early age. So I was born and raised in Maryland and grew up in a United Methodist church. God was 11 to 12 on Sunday, and the rest of the time was do whatever in the world you wanted to do, and I did. And so it wasn't until July 27th of 93 that 2 guys shared the gospel with me, and for the first time it made sense. I'm coming up on my spiritual birthday here next week, and what will be 27 years coming up here this July. And life has never been the same. You know, I was self-employed when I first got saved, had 2 businesses, and I was in my early 20s at that point, doing very well financially, thought I had, the world by the tail. And then after I became a Christian and got convicted that, wait, the greatest thing you can give your life to is to Jesus and his mission and his cause. And it isn't that being self-employed is bad or anything like that. It's just that I realized at that moment that to maximize the gifts and the talents God had given to me, I needed to become a pastor. So long story short with that, I became a pastor in the year 2000, a church in Maryland. Did that for a couple of years, and I worked for Reformed and Purpose-Driven Ministries for a couple of years, training pastors. And then that's when I got connected into the Eastern Regional Conference. That would have been in 2006. The Chambersburg First Church of God hired me to be a consultant to come in and help them with their contemporary worship service. And the story of that, obviously, it took off, it exploded, it grew. We built a new, big building outside of town. And I thought I'd be there for the rest of my life. And then it was in 2009, I get a email, as many people were getting at the time, from this guy named Chuck Frank, talking about the state of church planning in the Eastern Regional Conference of the Church of God, which at the time there really wasn't a lot going on. You had just been hired, but you were putting out this sort of weekly newsletter. And I read it only out of courtesy because you and I had a prior relationship. You had hired me as a consultant in your church when you were in the Brethren in Christ. And so I was just reading it in case you ever saw me and said, hey, are you reading my newsletter? I could honestly say yes.
That's good.
But there was a little blurb. It was a Thursday. There was a little blurb that said, have a potential location in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, just looking for the right church planner. And those words leapt off the screen at me. And God gave me a vision for starting Exponential. And I thought I had eaten bad pepperoni pizza, and I was just going to ignore it all. But I did write it down because it was such a strong thing. It would take me literally a half hour to describe that whole vision that God gave me like in 10 seconds. And so I did at least write it down and was going to pray about it, never intending to pray about it. I'm just being honest, because I didn't want to do it. But the very next morning, out of the complete blue, who calls me but Chuck Frank. And Chuck's question to me was, hey, have you been thinking about planning a church? And I'm like, oh, no. Shared the vision with Chuck. Of course, Chuck gets excited. I thought Lisa would be completely against it. Shared a vision with Lisa. She says, that's the coolest thing I've ever heard. We need to do that. And here we are 10 years later in Harrisburg, having survived 10 years. And literally, it's been a survival of 10 years. It's been the hardest thing I've ever done. One of the best things I've ever done as well. I've grown a lot myself, and it's helped me. So there it is.
Yeah, great. And I guess when it comes to evangelists, I know your heart bleeds for lost people, and you're very intentional about making sure Exponential is a place that's welcome to lost people, and you're very intentional about going after them for the kingdom.
Right.
And great work you're continuing to do. And actually, you're both on here because of your hearts for the Lord and for His people. And I think it's interesting. Gilbert you were in that very first cluster of planters we had for the 2020, and now Christina's kind of bringing up the end of things. And so I thought it'd make an intriguing matchup in sports terms to have both of you here today, sharing your stories. So just to lighten it up for a moment, what would be one thing that you could say that people would be surprised to know? What would be one thing about you that people would be surprised to know? Christina?
I know mine was
I don't know I have anything really surprising. That people would be surprised to know. I feel like I've led a very vanilla life, like there's no real shock value in here, and I think I'm very readable. As we find out, we attract who we are. We're learning that as we're trying to attract a lot of people just on a small level. We attract who we are. We're magnets for who we already are, I think, which challenges me to think differently and do different things. Something surprising about me, like I said, I don't think there's anything. I have a daughter who's getting married in a few months. Some people say, wow, I can't believe that. And I have 4 kids. I homeschool, and I always think that might surprise people, but people are like, you're totally a homeschool mom. So there you go. It's probably not surprising.
Doesn't sound too vanilla to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't feel like I have any real surprises. Maybe I do.
So you're just a normal person.
I am very normal.
Sometimes people build up church planters. They put a wall up against them because they're either crazy or just rebellious or just doing their own thing. But you're just a normal person, right? And,
yeah, I think the most surprising thing that people are finding when we go out and minister and do things for our church, they say, who's your pastor? And I'm like, me? And that's a big surprise for people.
Yeah.
So being a female, I guess, I don't know. So they're like, oh, that's cool. I'm like, yeah. So
coming back to
that's
you,
the biggest surprise.
Let me follow that point, because that actually was my next question. How hard is it being a woman in ministry?
I don't find it really difficult at all. I know I've heard some people say it's an uphill battle, or I think it's like anything else, God called you to do it, you do it. If I don't think it's any more difficult. I would argue, and this might not be popular, but I think it's easier for a woman to be a pastor than a man, because kind of being a mom and doing everything that you do, women are more natural shepherds, I think. And guys might have that shepherding thing be a little more challenging. So I don't know. I haven't hit a roadblock. Some people are surprised that I'm the, as we go out, I don't wear a tag that says pastor. I don't call myself pastor. Anybody, my people don't call me pastor anybody, because I said I will always be Christina. Please don't tack a title on my name. So
Interesting.
I God called you to do it. Nothing God calls you to do is easy, but I don't think it's any more challenging than it would be for anyone else. But maybe I'm naive, and I'm only, really 6 months down the road into this church in the middle of COVID. So, I guess I admit I probably have a lot to learn, but I don't think it'll be God called you to it. It's not going to be any more challenging for a girl than a guy. I don't have any ambition. I'm not trying to climb the pastor ladder. I'm just trying to love people and reach them for Jesus. So God will accomplish what he wants to accomplish, I'm sure.
Yeah. So Gilbert, how hard is it being a woman for you? No. Just joking anyway. We won't get into transgender or anything like that this morning. We'll save that for Rich's talk with Mike Walker next week. You didn't let the cat out of the bag about that, did you?
Funny guy. Yeah, You do this and then you just leave the stage. It's 2 weeks. Yeah.
So Gilbert, I know we lost. What would be that one thing that people would be surprised to know about you?
I think it would be that I'm actually more introverted than I am extroverted,
No.
which a lot of people look at me because they're used to seeing me on stage. But
Stage.
I grew up on this stage. You know, I was in my first productions when I was probably 5 or 6 when I started. So I just grew up on a stage. I then eventually became a professional entertainer for many years. And then I've been on a stage being a pastor for many years. So being on a stage is very comfortable. And so I have a very sort of outgoing personality in public, but behind the scenes, I'm just, you know, you earlier as we were in the thing, the pre-call, you said, oh, you're being, you know, awfully quiet. Well, that's just sort of who I am. When I have something to say, I'll say it. And you guys know that, you know, I'm not afraid to speak my mind, but it's just the general thing of, yeah, I'm a little bit more introverted than not, and people think, oh, he must be like really confident and stuff, and I'm just as surprised as anybody else that God's choosing me to do anything, because I'm just a normal person.
So let's just change from being a woman, from being a church planter. How hard is it at being a church planter here in ministry, in general, not just ERC, but the general, I don't want to say vocation, the general calling of church planter, multiplier. How does that affect? What have you encountered wearing that hat?
So the big thing for me, and part of the reason that I didn't want to plant a church, is I had started 2 businesses and remembered how hard that was. You know, most small businesses fail. And to me, as I always had thought about church planting, I was like, in some way, and I know there's going to be people in here that are like, oh, churches and businesses aren't the same, but there's some principles that are there. And for me, it was a thing of, I knew that this would be the same difficulties as trying to start a business, but yet Satan was going to be like really, really against it. So it was like, you know, I didn't necessarily want to do it. So what I tell planners now is, if you're going to plant, do it because you know that Jesus is calling you to do it, not just because, oh, well, I have an issue with my church and I think I can do it better than what they can do it, and so I'm just going to go do my own thing. This is really a thing, and obviously everything in life we should do because we know that God's calling us to do it, but this is one of those things that it's tough, and you know, especially the way that Lisa and I chose to do it, and Chuck, you can speak to this more than I can because you're the sort of expert in all things church planting, but we did what was called a parachute drop, which means that we moved into an area that we didn't know anybody, and we were literally starting from scratch. You know, other church planter, and the type that Christina's doing, what would that be called, Chuck? Because she already lives in the area and has some existing relationships. So I forget what the technical term for that is. Do you know what that is? Anyway,
she's almost hiving off because there's a group that's come over from the home church to tell. Is that
right? And yeah, so it's a daughter church type of thing. But even still, sometimes you would have a daughter church, but it may be in a different area where she's still somewhat local. Whereas we literally came to an area that we didn't know anybody, so that's, you know, really difficult. So that would be another thing to keep in mind is just, you know, who has God called you to be, and what gifts has He given you, and yeah, it's been tough. It's been tough.
Yeah, when you started out, you had a full head of hair. I mean, it's amazing.
I did. And no gray, but I notice now there's some gray coming in the whiskers. So, yeah.
That'll do it.
But that's only started since COVID, so I'm blaming that one on COVID, not church planting.
That's right.
Hey, well, one thing that really surprised me about you, that I'm really shocked, just looking at what's behind you, you're a Wheaties man? I thought surely you were a cornflakes man.
I'm not a Wheaties man. Don't you see what's on the cover there? Those are the Super Bowl champion of the Washington, whatever our name will be in the future.
Oh, I knew I brought that up for wrong reasons. So you're not a Wheaties man then. Okay. Just Trying to
Those
get
are
the
my
story straight.
collective. That's the 88 and 92 championships.
Yeah, good. You have, Gilbert, you have a reputation in our conference for being an expert at technology and consulting. Share a little bit about that, and give some of our pastors out there and some churches who maybe aren't there, who get frustrated because they don't have the abilities. Are there little things they can do, or what would you recommend for some of those churches? Like that's one thing about church planning. You're starting out with scratch, so you guys are both starting works out here from scratch. So how has that gone for you?
Well, number one, I wouldn't call me an expert. I've brought some experts around me through the years, and that sort of rubbed off on me. I had some technical ability, and I had the vision for it, but a lot of the technical how-tos is things that I've had to bring other people in to help with, and then I've learned some of it myself. But as far as and this isn't just technology, this is anything, keep in mind that excellence is not perfection. Excellence is doing the best you can with what you've got. And so if in your church, the best you've got is your cell phone, then just do the best you can with your cell phone. If the best you have is, you want to start something, say contemporary as far as music. If all you have is one person on an acoustic guitar, don't worry that you don't have drums or a bass guitar or a keyboardist or whatever. Do the best you can with what you've got. And so that, again, goes to anything, not just technology. It's the parable of the talents. The guy that was given the 5 and the guy that was given the 3, at the end, they got the same reward. They did the best they could with what they had, and then they got the same reward. It was when you took your talent and you buried it and said, well, I'm going to play it safe. That was the guy that was condemned.
Yeah, good. So you would advise one of the aspects of church planting and multiplication is starting where you're at with what you've got and moving from there, not being discouraged about what you don't have.
Right. Yeah, and that's all thing. What people as God brought you around, what gifts do they bring to the table? Do the best you can with what you got from a skills base, from a financial base. Obviously, the more money, then the more things you're going to be able to get. But going back to the technology thing, for us, one of the big questions we always ask is this a tool or is it a toy? Because there's a lot of toys that are out there that I'd love to have, but it doesn't help us with our mission. And so every piece of technology that we buy is always based on, is this a tool that's going to help us to better further the mission that we have as Exponential to help people take life-changing next steps in their journey with God. So that's...
Good. As we get close to the halftime here, but I'll turn it over to Rich in a second. Just want to close out this thought with you, Christina. Because every time I talk to you, you're doing something what seems to be incredibly complex in trying to work a business and a faith community and a rock wall and legal 401c3s with making sure that community zoning is right for buildings. And you've been searching for a building now for, well, at least 2 years, probably, going on 2 years. And you probably have some good news. And I will let you share, maybe not good news, but something that we can be praying for you about as you consider building. So how do you do it? How do you become, you're just a normal person. You're not Superwoman, but yet you've taken on all these hats to try to get a business and a church started.
Yeah. One of our first meetings we had, I guess that we had to wade into the 501c3. We did, just to put a shameless plug in for the place that has walked us through it. There's a place out of Lancaster called Harbor Compliance, and they do a great job. Anything with nonprofits, taxes and everything. And they obviously, we're just starting, so they do not break the bank or anything, but they have helped us walk through all of this. And really, if they know you're a Christian nonprofit, they even gave me a lady who's who has a doctorate and like 3 doctorates and has been all over the world, and she prays for you when she's on the phone figuring out your whole 501c3 thing. And so they really helped us through that. And then everything else, just sitting with, we have just learned to sit with and regularly attend our meetings, like the borough meetings or the township meetings, and just getting to know people there and talking to them and encouraging them and bringing them coffee and having them say, we can't even take coffee from you because if we have to make a decision, then they have to report everything. So just trying to be generous and appreciating people where they are and getting to know them. And yeah, there's a lot of complicated stuff that is not in my skill set. I constantly think of people saying, don't work outside your gifting. God will send someone, don't work outside your gifting. And sometimes I think God also says, I've called you to this, I'm going to see you through it. Like I am not, one of our first meetings, they were like, I can't believe that you are sitting there with all of these papers in a folder for us, because I am the most eclectic, like, oh, we'll figure it out. And I have been forced to be organized and learn things. So yeah, God will definitely surround you with people and encourage you and force you to reach out and figure things out that you didn't think you would have to. And, as far as the technology thing, we are like, all of our meetings are outside now. They've been getting really hot, but they're outside just because of safety reasons. We meet house to house, and we had like 23 people. That gets a lot in a house this time of year. And so we are forced to try and figure out the Facebook Live, because we have a lot of people that only watch Facebook Live that have never come to any service because we're a house service, and they live really far away. We have a couple people from New Mexico watching now who knew someone, and so now they're watching. And we are trying to figure out that technology thing and be faithful, like he said, with what we have. So as we walk this, we're just like, we have a laptop, we have a small portable sound system. They don't play well together, so we're trying to take steps to make them play together, but not that anybody's a professional in that area, but we just, you have to learn. You have to, we have everything at our fingertips with Google and YouTube, and it's not as hard to understand things maybe as it once was. You can just Google a professional. But yeah, I've had to do a lot of things that I never thought I would do. So.
You guys are expected to know so much, because, when I was coming up in the planting world, we had an overhead projector. That was high tech. And, the band was, an acoustic guitar player, doing vineyard, and that was the technology required was minimal. So today you have to know so much. So
real quick, let me buy an audio interface, Christina, for your laptop and soundboard.
Audio interface.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
we can talk about it later, but just for anybody else that was tuning in that's having that same issue, that's what you need.
Okay.
Yeah, good.
It's
good.
It's not. You can get one for $100 or so it's not big.
So maybe you want to share that, Gilbert. The audio interface does what then?
It'll help your laptop and soundboard sort of talk to one another.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's for very simple input. Now we actually run our audio interface then through another piece of software called vMix, which allows us then to do even more mixing of the camera and the audio. And yeah, now we're getting into real technical stuff. Partly we actually got a new soundboard that somebody, and we've actually been blessed through COVID that people just keep saying, hey, I want to buy these things for it. And people that aren't part of Exponential, which is so cool. So we had an individual that said, hey, I know you guys are trying to figure out the, how to get your band mix for your live stream when you go. I'll buy you the $3,000 board you need for it. It's like, oh, okay. But anyway, so we actually can mix our board now to have the house mix, and then the same board can control the stream mix as well.
That's
just
nice.
A simple push of the button between the two. But we still have to use an audio interface between the two. And Colleen just asked, yes, it's a piece of equipment, Colleen.
Yeah. I want to turn it over to Rich.
Little box
And,
about you big.
yeah. If you have any more questions about technology, I'm sure Gilbert will field the call. But don't hesitate to give him a holler. So, Rich, I know we're a little late here in the half hour, so my apologies.
No problem. No, pretty much. I think people have been listening in. Some of the questions are about tech. Some guy named Gil said, "Hi, all, Gil here." I think that's probably some relation to Gilbert. Gil, good to have you here. He said he's dealing with tech, hopefully getting there. So he's been getting some advice along the way too. Yeah, I was thinking in Dennis Hampshire's. Yeah, thank you, Gilbert, for talking about excellence. I was thinking of, and for you, Christina, too, is you start off, you just do what you can with what you have. And like, I remember when I worked at Friendship Community Church as worship pastor there, we needed a lot of attachments. And so I knew I'd worked at Radio Shack before. So I got different things to attach this to that, and it turned out to be quite a mess. Well, Radio Shack isn't the place. It's a place you can use, but if you want a professional hookup, you don't go to Radio Shack. But the stuff worked. I mean, God must have been hearing our prayers. It worked for a very long time. And again, there, like you were saying, Gilbert, God brought to me there a person who was excellent at all that stuff. And actually now he's a part-time tech guy there at that church, along with other people, even on the staff or whatever. But and for you, Christine, you're saying about, you got to do all these things, and it is true. I mean, it's nice to, people to say, okay, you just do what you're gifted in, but it doesn't work.
No.
And starting a church, it doesn't work, and in small churches, it doesn't work either. I mean, I've done both, and it doesn't work. But the key is to figure out how you can get other people involved. So how do you do that? How do you, Christina? I want to add this question: how do you get people to do in ministry what they're gifted to do, not just to help you, but to do what they're called to do? How do you work through that with them?
Good question.
To do what they're called to do. Well, I don't know if I shoot myself in the foot sometimes. I do really try and tell the people that are surrounding me right now that figure out what their gifts are. And I think most of them do know that, and pursue that, go after that. And if you read any book on how businesses become great, or how ministries have become great, or Good to Great, or any of those books, they all say you have to have a laser focus on your heart's desire and your ministry goal and everything like that. So the people that are surrounding me right now, that on our core team, we have this laser focus, but I'm also encouraging people, even the people that are coming to the service, my core team needs to have a laser focus for this ministry, this coffee house and community center. But I'm also encouraging individuals to pursue their own, what God put on their heart, their own thing, their own one thing. So as people come around us, as people begin to come to the services and stuff, I want them to, it's all discipleship. What is your gift? What are you good at? And then I want them to focus on that. As far as bringing people around me with skills, as I encourage people to figure out their skills, what their skill set is, even their APEST, to figure out what that is. As I encourage them to do that, hopefully they're going to fit in somewhere here, or fit in somewhere else, or even be called to pursue their own thing. But my goal is, I guess it's a good thing, like you said, Rich, not to so much get people to figure out what their gifts are and apply them to my ministry, but figure out what their gifts are and then find out what ministry and where they're supposed to work. And God is just faithful to bring people along to know what to do. I mean, he has really blessed us with, right now, one of our guys is a construction guy. So when we get a building, he has some people who are potentially willing to do some construction stuff at low cost, or because we're a nonprofit. So God is sending people, as I encourage people, hey, what's your gift? And I don't say to this guy, hey, you have to have a gift that lines up we're going to fit you in here. You're going to, we need these things, whatever his gift is, we'll go do that. And while he's doing that, he's going to go, by the way, I have these people that could come and help you. So I really think encouraging people, which is kind of like counter what I just said, what we were saying, we need people with gifts, with technology gifts, but encouraging people to go after their own gifts, then they're going to seek to help you back, and when they get a connection that's going to benefit our ministry, they send them our way. But yeah, I think the really important thing for me is not so much bringing people around me that have the gifts that I need, but encouraging the people to find their gifts and really pursue them, because that's, God made you for something, and you're going to have to do these side things, and they are all willing to do side things. Sometimes, I will just say, I need someone to do this,
Right.
and it's not going to be me. I need someone to do this. Or I'll say, I thought of you. Will you just do this? And they'll kind of be like, yeah, I will. It's not something that's going to take a whole chunk of their life. But so I do ask people to do things that I think might be outside of their wheelhouse, but it stretches them too.
And that's okay, because it doesn't take a spiritual gift of handshaking to, well, of course, nowadays you can't shake hands, but there's going to be secondary needs that people can use for their gifts that aren't necessarily their primary gifts, but it's a secondary need of the ministry that needs to get done. And you guys know, as church planters, you're wearing all different kinds of hats all the time. And so the tension point becomes between, or how do you guys handle with this? I'm sure it happens to you guys. When you can do something better than somebody else, or you just because of whatever, how do you let them out, let the leash out so that they can go and do, even though it may not be quite as good as you would do it or how you would do it? Is there a tension there, Gilbert, between trying to equip and empower, release, and yet still wanting to hold on and to nurture and to grow? How do you know how do you do that? How do you do that?
Right, and that actually goes back to something I touched on earlier about excellence, that, in my mind for many years, excellence was perfection. And so if I could do it better than somebody else, then to me, that was the better result. However, as my definition shifted from excellence is doing the best you can with what you have, that's when I realized that, okay, it doesn't have to be done perfectly, but if we're going to, in our case, exponentially grow things, then more and more people have to be given opportunities. So the general role, and obviously you can come up with your own definition of this, but general rule we use is that if somebody can do it 80% as well as what you can, then let them do it. So yes, maybe they're going to do it or maybe you could do it a little bit better than they could, but at 80%, that's enough. Obviously, you don't just say, here it is, good luck, God bless you, and then you're completely hands off. You're still going to be there to watch, to see how they're doing, to offer feedback and input, suggestions to help them to grow. And most people, they do want to grow. They want to know.
Sure.
So we're obviously giving good constructive feedback, not just, and I've, again, been guilty of this in the past of, just in the busyness of things. And there's so many things going on, because like you're saying, you are wearing so many hats, to be a little too blunt, and not meaning to be mean about it, but it's just, I got things going on, hey, do that, and to slow down. I remember John Maxwell one time said, the best thing you can do is walk slowly through the crowd. And I've been guilty of just rushing from one thing to the other, because there's a lot of tasks to do. And so one of the things for me is that people are more important than projects. That's been something I've had to learn. And that, yes, the projects are important, but people are even more important. And so in giving that constructive feedback, I got to remember that they are a person, not just a person that's doing a project. And how I communicate with them needs to be.
Very quickly, I just want to ask just a couple quick questions with some short ending answers, so we can get a bunch of stuff in here real quick. What would you say, I'll start with Gilbert this time, what would you say is the toughest challenge you have on a day-to-day basis?
In over the 10 years or right now with COVID?
Yeah, well, what you've learned through the process and where you are right now.
Right now, it's just that the biggest challenge is we know that Jesus is truth, but it's just wrestling through all the stuff in culture and the divisiveness and we are called to be shepherds of God's flock. And so what is the safe thing to do? What's the wise thing to do? What's the thing that, we're acting in faith and not fear, but yet at the same time, again, being wise about it. And so there's just so much stuff out there. You can make numbers say anything you want numbers to say. And so it's who do you trust? And again, ultimately we trust Jesus, but so yeah, that's been pretty difficult. When do we reopen and all those types of things? So that's the biggest challenge right now.
Okay, Christina, and if you want to feel free to give a little plug in for House of Bread here and where they are in the building search, fine. Maybe that's not the thing that challenges you the most right now. What would you say? You're a year or two into this. What's your greatest challenge that you're facing on a day-to-day basis?
I mean, right now in the physical, it's the building. How do we draw up this contract with all these contingencies so that we're not stuck with something we can't use if we don't get the okays for what we want to use it for, and all of those things. So there is a lot of like admin, just moving ahead cautiously with the whole building thing. But I'm with Gilbert on you have a bunch of people. I mean, he might have 10 times the amount of people. I don't know how many are over there at Exponential, but even with the 23, like sitting out here, and as conversation shifts when the service is over, like how do you not how do you guide that conversation to say we're not hating anybody about this, and just guiding a conversation about what's happening, current events, COVID, what do I believe? No one's evil for doing one thing or the other thing, just kind of trying to be really faithful in that, and how we continue to meet if it's outside. What if somebody shows up? What if their kid was sick? And then there's the whole elephant in the room thing, that there are people that, and I might fall more on this side, and it's, everybody, there's even the wide range in our 23 people. Some people are like, we're to be shepherds, we're to be cautious, we're to be helping the people and wearing masks, and other people are like, well, Jesus went and prayed for the leper, and we are called to be like Jesus. So why are we walking in fear? So there's a whole range in the Christian community, even within our 23 people. So just kind of reeling that in and saying, look, how do we worship together? How do we worship God and you feel safe, and you don't feel like, we're stomping on your faith. Your faith is okay. So that is a really big challenging in this time, I think. And, it goes back to like, what has God led you to? What's the Holy Spirit putting on your heart? And, unfortunately in the world and the information that we have been given, everybody can make arguments in both directions. It's just like the Bible. We have now like medical mask theologians, picking out their piece and preaching on why this works or doesn't work. You're like, oh my goodness, now we have. So, I just kind of try and understand both sides and just be like, we're just moving ahead in love and things like that. So that's the biggest challenge for me, having a group of people together and continuing in love. Yeah.
Well, Gilbert, I've expected you to pull out your mask at this point. Yes, your COVID mask. After all, if you have an APAS right in your pocket every day.
Oh, I see where you're going with that. Okay. It took me a second to see where's this going. All right.
A little slow developing humor there. What you both have been in ministry now anywhere from 5 to 25 years. That might be a little high, but what would you, in church planting and multiplication is such a different animal in terms of talents and skill sets and emotional issues and things that you deal with. What would both of you say to a person? You've got about 45 seconds with each one, and they want to say, and they come up to you and say, tell me, I'm thinking about being a church planter. What's going to help me the most to know? I mean, besides talking with the Lord, we know that. I mean, what is it I should know about? What did they tell me in seminary or in Bible school that I should know about becoming a church planter or multiplier?
Are you saying somebody that already knows that they know that they know that they know that God's calling them to
Right.
plant?
Well, calling is ultimate, right?
All right. So the calling is there, and now they're asking, what's the number one thing I need to know?
Yeah.
Don't want to make it too spiritual, but obviously prayer. None of it will succeed without Jesus intervening, and God is sovereign. And I look at even what we've done over these past 10 years, because everything that I had done prior, just always great success. And Exponential hasn't had the quote unquote success, at least in the worldly terms. But yet it has been a success. So you've got to do the best you can with what you've got, but then you also have to trust God for the results as well, and be okay with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good. Well, I think just from the outside person who's been around during these 10 years, you've seen hundreds of people come to know Christ. So don't ever doubt that you're not having great impact for the kingdom. And I know you don't. But.
Yeah, it's in the old measure of nickels and noses.
Yeah.
That has been for so many years. It has, but I look at, like, in 10 years, we now have 13 people that are on full-time staff at other churches that have gone off to other churches. So 13, only 2 of which had ever been on staff at a church prior. So while our numbers haven't grown and grown and grown and grown through the years, exponentially, we've sent people out
Right.
to be a part of other churches and to help the kingdom. So, and yeah, anyway, I want to hear Christine.
Yeah. Now I want to come back to that in a moment. But Christina, what would be one thing you would say to somebody considering going to be, who's feeling the call to go into church planting or be a multiplier?
Again, if they already know that they're supposed to do it, I think, you can't, again, with Gilbert, you can't overstate that you need to pray, you need to make sure you're walking where God wants you to walk. But I think people, just looking at the example of Jesus, like, the most important thing you're doing is people. It's not the building, it's not your program. Like, you will only be successful because of the people that he surrounds you with. Like, unless you're called to be, you're not a church planner if you're called to be a prophet, and go alone. But it's the people. You have to understand who you should be surrounded with. And again, even what Gilbert said, equipping them and being faithful to the people that you've been given. And they don't even have to stay with you, just equipping them and seeing them go do what God created them to do. And if it is to go, then it's to go. You're only in this for the people. The people are the church. When you say church planning, I mean, I know it's trite, but people are the church, and you're church planning. And what's important is the people. We just went yesterday. We've been going out to 2 churches that closed out in Western PA and picking up. I mean, we've been really blessed with some of the things that, just tables, chairs, things like that. And we've been storing them. And I wrote a thank you and just an encouragement. And there has been one guy that's there and just unlocks the door, an older man that unlocks the door to one of the churches. And I said, this is just a thank you and an encouragement. And he said, well, the church isn't here anymore. And I said, and you're the church. I said, this is to the people of this church. I want you to hear this. And he just looked really confused. But, as a church planner, it's not about a building. It's not about the technology. It's about the people in the church. And I wanted to encourage that one guy who went to that church who's still there to unlock the door for us. So it's all about the people. Like, if you're a church planter, and I wouldn't even call me a people person, in a lot of ways I'm not, but you have to love people. That's why Jesus died, for people. So you're trying to build his bride. So that's what it's about.
Well,
Real
and
quick,
you,
Christina, hold on, excuse me, Jack. Christina, I just remembered I have something that your church may want that we can give you guys, so we can connect with what that is. But it just popped in my mind that, oh yeah, we had saved this specifically for you, and then COVID hit, and I forgot all about it until
cool.
you just said about the church. So connect with me afterwards, and we'll get back to you.
We're
Okay.
such matchmakers here. I tell you.
Oh.
Okay, real quick, I got one question to end with, but I have a little snippet here that I love to throw in. It's a little segment called I Say, You Say. So starting with Gilbert, I say vacation, you say.
Hopefully soon.
Christina, I say vacation, you say.
They canceled family camp this year, so it's not happening. It's people. We can't be around them, so oh well.
Okay, Christina, I say favorite food, you say.
Chicken?
Chicken. Gilbert, I
Japanese
say favorite
hibachi.
food. Hibachi, okay, of course. Gilbert, I say favorite preacher, you say.
Chuck Frank? No.
Now you're talking. Now you're talking. Talking my language. But seriously, folks.
I don't know. There's been so many people through there. I would say like maybe Craig Rochelle.
Okay. Christina, I say favorite preacher. You say.
Right now I'm really liking Francis Chan.
Okay. Christina, I say favorite Bible story. You say.
Jonah.
Rich. Yeah, Rich. Jonah. Gilbert, I say favorite Bible story. You say.
I'm going to go with Paul in Athens in Acts 17.
Ah, we had an intellectual encounter there. Okay, Gilbert, I say sport. No, let me rephrase that. Now, you remember this is a family-rated show. I say Philadelphia Eagles. You say.
That's my answer.
Christina, I say Philadelphia Eagles. You say.
I think of like a webcam with eagles nesting or something.
Okay.
City of
I can see
Philadelphia.
if you need to pull that one out of the lineup. And lastly, I say biggest main hobby. Gilbert, you say.
You said hobby?
Hobby.
I guess my hobby right now is my fish, my koi.
Koi. And Christina, I say biggest hobby. You say.
I don't have time for hobbies.
Okay, just one.
Yeah, just one.
A surprising one.
A surprising one. Yeah, if I had time, we're into music. I play violin. If I had time, I'd play.
Violin.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So be it. All right. Rich, anything else to add before we put a wrap on this one?
Nope, not today. Thank you all for being here.
Yeah, you guys have done a great job. And one thing I love about you is your heart for mission and generosity. So I was wondering if we could both end with a very short, under 1 minute story, just a joyful story that when you at the end of the day you think about, you think, yeah, that's why we do this. Give me just one less than a minute story that just brings you joy for what God's bringing you with the ministry that He's given you. And Gilbert.
You're saying that we've done or that's happened to us?
Well, as part of the ministry, something that you say, wow, that was a God thing, you know.
I shared a little bit earlier that, you know, the whole COVID thing has been so tough on churches. We've actually seen, going back to the Nichols thing, we've actually seen an increase because of going online, both in attendance and in income side of things. And that's just a side thing, but what's really blessed me is that people just believing in what we're doing. And so we did have another church in the ERC that said, hey, we believe in you guys and what you're doing. And they said, we want to bless you with a all new video system, because we were still using when we started COVID, we were still using the camera we had bought 10 years ago. And they're like, how much is it going to be? And I said, we could probably get away with about 3,000. They said, here's 5. You know? So we were able to do that. And then the soundboard thing that I mentioned that, you know, somebody said, here's what you would probably need, and I'm willing to buy it. And then we had about $15,000 worth of landscaping that's being donated to us from a company here in the area. So we've had like $20,000 worth of just outside of normal giving. And so it's just, it's God has been good to us through it. It's been stressful, as it's been for most people, because there's a lot of new things we have to learn and do, but yet at the same time we've seen God's hand.
It's a cattle on 1,000 hills. God's got it all. We just got to ask and go seeking for it. Okay, Christina, less than 45 seconds.
Okay, generosity. I just think, I'm going outside of money here. I just think God has been really generous. In years ago, this walk that even before I was coming into the Churches of God, I was doing some street evangelism, and just this week we were able to do that again. And I was really nervous because of COVID. I'm like, no one's going to want some person to come up and talk to them and, give us the time of day or anything. But really, some members of our team, we went down to Gettysburg and we did some discernment before, asking God for some specific things to look for. And right out of the gate, one girl on our team, she saw these specific things, went up to the person ended up sharing with her and was really broken. And after they were able to pray, and there was just she's like, we just delivered hope and joy, like the generosity. We were all exhausted. It was hot. It was the end of the day, and we all met for prayer beforehand. And we were just saying, this is not what we feel like doing on a hot day, but it was on the schedule, and God just was so generous to us in showing us, he spoke to us beforehand, gave us specifics, and really impacted a life there that evening. And there are more stories than that, but God is just he's so good, and he is still doing, if we're willing to go, he's still very generous with his spirit. So
he's still in the miracle making business, no doubt about it. And if you want to get more from Christina about the Bread of Hope at House of Bread, they also have some Bread of Hope at the House of Bread. You just got to order the right thing. And so feel free to contact her. We have her contact information. And of course, anything for Gilbert, give him a holler. You guys are great. Maybe we'll have you back in a couple months when we see how things shake out with COVID here. And keep praying for both your ministries. And before I pray us out, I just cover your prayers. This time next Tuesday, I will be officially probably under the knife, getting purged of a nasty bone in my knee. So I'll cover your prayers for that as well. So thank you, and let me pray us out. Father, I just thank you for Christina and Gilbert and the ministries that you've put them over, and how you have just supplied beyond their wildest imaginations. We heard that again today, that you're a God of generosity, and you give and give and give, even beyond what we ask. So I just pray again that you continue to bring people around them that can help take the ministry even further to where you want to see it go, and help them to know that as long as they do things in your spirit and to your name, that indeed there'll be a blessing coming forth for them as well. So give you all the praise and glory in Jesus' name. And everybody said, Amen.
Amen.
Okay, thanks everybody for coming. See ya. Don't forget, this afternoon it'll be on the YouTube channel, the rewind of it. So we hope you get caught up then. All right, Rich, till next time.
Yep.
Knock them out. Christina, Chuck, thank you. Gilbert.
Thank you. Have a good day.